Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Houston Sports Talk back into the video today. And today, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 128 to 126 in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals to take a 3-1 lead. Amazing performances by Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a playoff career high 40 points. He nearly had a 40-point triple-double tonight, as Shai also had 9 rebounds and 10 assists. He shot 13 for 30 from the floor, 2 for 7 from 3, and 12 for 14 at the free throw line. Look, does this guy go to the free throw line a lot? Obviously, yes. I don't think there's anyone that's going to ignore that, but the point I like to say sometimes is people act like all of his points come from the free throw line. He made amazing plays, amazing shots, and amazing passes tonight for this Thunder team. You remove the free throws, it's still a 28-10-9 performance, which is still a great performance. And it's not like every foul that he's getting fouled on is not a foul. There were some intentional fouls that, he had like four free throws he had off of intentional free throws. There's nothing he can do about that. And he made all single of those free throws, so I think you count that. And then there was a bunch of times he did get fouled tonight outside of his intentional fouls that, it is a foul. Now, sure, there probably was a couple fouls tonight where it's not a foul. It's a bad call. But I think that's probably only happening 2 or 3 times to the point where that's only removing... Since he missed 2 free throws, it's only removing around 6 points out of 40. And so you add on the 10 assists, 9 rebounds he had. It was a great performance. It really was. And so, but yeah, I was really impressed with it. And but I think as a team tonight, it was a great performance. After the performance that they just had, it was unbelievable that he played, that they played, not just him. I mean, obviously Shai was great. I don't think anyone's going to say otherwise, but as a team, they were great. Jalen Williams, a playoff career high. We can talk about Shai's playoff career high, 40 points, but Jalen Williams also had a career high in playoff points tonight. He didn't even have a playoff game, prior to this performance, he only had one playoff game with 30 points before this performance. He had 32 points in one of the games against Denver. The overtime loss, he had 32 points. Now, he's played at this point 24 playoff games. It's only the second time he's had a 30-point. Most of these games, he's reached well over 20. A lot of 20-point performances in the playoffs for J-Dub. To the point where in the playoffs in his career, he's averaging a little bit over 20 points per game in the postseason. But this is only his second 30-point performance in the postseason, and also, his career high in playoffs, 13 for 24, and 6 for 9 from 3, 34 points. Chet Holmgren, 21 points, 7 rebounds. That was another guy that played really well. Alex Caruso got back to the form that you need to see. Game 1, Game 2, Alex Caruso was absolutely outstanding, and you didn't see that from Alex Caruso in this last game, in Game 3. 10 points for him tonight. The guys that you needed to step up last game stepped up. Kassan Wallace, 7 points, 3 assists, 2 steals. This is another guy that was so good in the first 2 games and was not great in the last game. Hartenstein did a great job on the rebounding effort. Only took 1 shot, only played 16 minutes, but had 6 rebounds in 16 minutes. That was great for them. Lou Dort didn't do a whole lot offensively, but was great defensively. I think a guy that didn't play in when the game mattered last game. There wasn't a lot of time in the game when the game mattered, but Kenrich Williams was not someone who was involved in the last game. Game 1, we saw that amazing Game 1 from Williams, and he, in Game 2, played a little bit, played like 3 minutes, didn't shoot well, only took like 2 shots or something like that, missed both of them. And then he was at DNB again, where I think he played late in the game in the fourth quarter when it was a 30-plus point game, but never played when the game actually mattered. That changed tonight. He got 12 minutes and got around the minutes he got in game one, and he played well. He shot 2 for 3, 1 for 2 from 3, and 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. I think if you're OKC going back to OKC in this game 5, you look to play Williams again, just like they did tonight and just like they did in game one. But like I said, this Thunder's team, it was SGA and Williams combining for 74 to 128, but it was a bunch of other guys helping out tonight, like Chet and Caruso, who was outstanding, and he played 33 minutes tonight, and Kassan Wallace was great again. You needed those guys to play well tonight. It's not just SGA, J-Dub, it's the others as well with Chet and those guys. Let's get to Minnesota, because I thought Minnesota played well tonight. I predicted this before the game. I predicted that this was going to be the first real competitive game of this series. There have been way too many games in this series for us not to see a good competitive game. And you haven't seen that in this series before tonight. 3 blowouts, really. I mean, I think in the first 2 games, Minnesota was competitive for the first 3 quarters. It was an entertaining game. But then when that fourth quarter starts, OKC runs away with it. That wasn't the case tonight. OKC had opportunities to run away with this game. Minnesota kept trying to peek back in. And, look, they did a great job trying to get back in this ballgame. But OKC, every time, they had an answer for them. But this was still the first competitive game. Now, look, I predicted Minnesota win this game. But I also predicted, which I think, it's not crazy that it happened, but it is the first time it had happened in the series, where the point where it's a competitive ball game. And I went with Minnesota because if in a competitive ball game, close ball game, I'm going to give the home team the edge. But also the fact that, OKC, they've got such a great team. They've got 2 great closers in J-Dub and SGA, to the point where it is hard to win a competitive game against them as well. But it was still, they still played a great game, man. Anthony Edwards was bad tonight, but it's not like they're not talented outside of him. Jaden McDaniels was killer. He had 10 points in the first quarter. He had 22 in the game. Also, the interesting thing was, He had 2 10-point quarters, McDaniels tonight. He had 10 in the first. He only had 2 in the second. He had 0 in the third, and he had a 10-point fourth quarter. McDaniels was amazing tonight. Rudy Gobert, he wasn't like as good as McDaniels or some of the other guys were, but Gobert had his best game of the series by far. 13, 9, 3 assists, 32 minutes, 5 for 8 from the floor. And then the 2 guys off the bench. Really 3 guys off the bench. Everybody off the bench. Gilgeous-Alexander Walker. Obviously, he wasn't the best player on the floor in his family tonight, but in my opinion, he was the best player on his team tonight. 23 points for Alexander Walker, 9 for 15, 5 for 8 from 3 with 23 points and 6 assists, 2 steals for Alexander Walker. I think, look, I'm not going to go as far to say that Alexander Walker's performance is as impressive as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's, but if you would have told me before the game, and I'm not saying Gilgeous-Alexander Walker's not capable of doing what he did tonight, but you would have told me, what are you more surprised about happening? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scoring 40 points and him having a great performance? Or Gilgeous-Alexander Walker leading Minnesota in scoring at home, where Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle should be doing that, and him almost having 25 points and being 5 for 5 from his first 5 3-point attempts. He didn't miss his next 3, but at one point was 5 for 5 from 3. Or maybe it was 4 for 4. I believe it was 4 for 4. But was automatic from 3 in most of this game. I know he did finish 1 for 4, but started off 4 for 4. 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. The performance he had today, and that's only in 29 minutes. You look at the guys that played 20. I mean, like McDaniels had 22. He got 31 minutes. Alexander Walker only played 29. Edwards played 41 minutes. Gobert played 32 minutes. Alexander Walker should have played more in this game tonight. He was outstanding. Like I said, I'm not going to say this is a more impressive performance compared to Shai's, but I think it's the more surprising performance of the two family members. But I know it has to be so interesting to play a family member in a playoff series. And and that's to probably feel so weird for all the other family members in the family. But this was one of the best games I think I've seen. I'm not saying this was one of the best games of his career, but I think this was one of the best games I've seen from Gilgeous-Alexander Walker. He was outstanding. Another guy who was outstanding was the guy that was involved in the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, and that's not the main guy that was involved. That's Dante DiVincenzo. He was outstanding. 7 for 11, 5 for 8 from 3. Had a possession, 2 straight possessions where he hit 2 straight corner threes for the Timberwolves in the third quarter. That was key for them trying to get back in the game. He had 6 assists. He had 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 21 points. He was outstanding. Naz Reid had 11 points, 6 rebounds. He was great. Terrence Shannon wasn't as good as he was in his game 1, in his last game in game 3, but also didn't play as much. 8 minutes for Shannon, 2 for 3 from the floor, 1 for 2 from 3, 4 for 4 at the free throw line, 9 points and 2 rebounds. I think, honestly, it might be as impressive because he put up similar numbers, scored a little bit lower, but it played way less in this game tonight. Obviously, he had a better game in the last game, but he played way more is another thing that I'm trying to point out there. But I thought Minnesota played great tonight. Your problems was Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Randle 1 for 7, 5 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Anthony Edwards 5 for 13, 1 for 7 from 3. He only took 4 shot attempts in the first half. Now that number went up pretty solidly in the second half, 9 shot attempts. And so it's not like he was playing great. I don't care if you're not playing good. You still got to shoot the ball. This is a great... Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what he did in game 1 was a great example. He was absolutely terrible in the first half. He couldn't buy anything. He was 2 for 13. But did he stop shooting? No. And he bounced back in the first half of game 1. Sorry, the second half of game 1. And just kept going. Kept shooting his shot. And he had a much better second half. I think he shot like 9 for 15 or something like that in the second half of that game 1. So when you're a star like Anthony Edwards, you've got the green light to shoot the ball no matter what. Now, I like him trying to facilitate more. He had 6 assists tonight, especially when you have hot shooters like McDaniels, who was 3 for 6 from 3, Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, and Dante DiVincenzo, who were both 5 for 8 from 3. But you still got to be more aggressive. We had Anthony Edwards had the same problem in game 1 of this series in the OKC when he only had 1 shot attempt in the fourth quarter. So this is the second straight game second game in this 4-game series so far. The 4 games in the series so far where you look at Anthony Edwards and say there's a problem of you not shooting the basketball enough. And that was the case in the first half of this game. Only 4 shot attempts in the first half, and then game 1 fourth quarter only shooting 1 shot. But I thought it was dangerous. Look, does Minnesota come back and win this series 3-1? Did they come back from 3-1? No, I don't think so. But I think that it's really impressive that Minnesota were so competitive as they were with Edwards and Randle playing the way they did tonight. And we're so competitive with the performances of Alexander Walker, DiVincenzo, and McDaniels, Terrence Shannon, and Naz Reid. Those guys stepping up instead of the guys that should be stepping up like Randle and Edwards. If those 2 guys can pick it up and those other guys that played so well tonight can bring in the production, Minnesota could win another game in this series, but I don't see them getting more than that. I think the series either ends in 5 or 6 games, most likely ending in 5. Last time the Thunder had a 3-1 lead in the conference finals, they blew it. They blew the 3-1 lead to the Warriors. I don't think that happens again. I think this Thunder team is so much better defensively than they were then. And not only that, but this Minnesota team is a great team, but they are not even half of what the Golden State Warriors were in the 2015-16 season. That's no disrespect to Minnesota. That's just credit to how good the 2015-16 Warriors were. And if we're getting credit to the 2015-16 Warriors, also give credit to that 2015-16 Cavs for coming back against that Warriors team. So that was the last time the Thunder had a 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals. I would say most likely they get the job done here. And if I'm Mark Dagnall, I'm reminding them about that 3-1. I would tell them, you guys think this is comfortable. Well, look at what the last time our franchise had when we were in this position. So Let's go and get this game 5. So, but yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the game in the comment section, and peace out.